Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Saturday Morning Mastermind. I'm your host today, Samantha Studebaker Carl. I'm here with my good friends Dan and Lori and Kenji and Catherine, and today we're going to continue our discussion of Sacred Contracts by Caroline Myss. And we are in chapter 1. We're still in chapter 1. And Grace and Charisma. Page 26 in the hard copy. So anyway, we'll start that discussion here in a second. As soon as my friends jump out, introduce themselves, and then Catherine, you can go ahead and read for us.
Lori Emmons in Denver with the frog.
Dan Sissick in Las Vegas.
Ken Pettingill, Gorham, Maine.
Good morning. It's Catherine Clement. All right. Grace and Charism. Lisa's recovery was made possible by many things. Her mother's encouragement, her willingness to listen closely to her dreams, and a few breaks that came her way. Her decision to turn over the job of rowing her boat to God might seem to you like a simple act of determination and will, or perhaps even one of frustration. But I attribute it to something entirely different, an infusion of grace from the divine that allowed her to open herself to the healing forces of the universe and recognize her own great potential. The nature of grace and how and why we receive it have long been questions for Western philosophers and theologians. I see grace as a form of vital energy that descends to us from the divine, the Western equivalent of what the Indians call prana, literally breath of life, and the Chinese qi. Qi has several different meanings, including air, breath, temperament, and strength, but it generally refers both to the vital energy that is circulated through and stored within the body and the breath itself, two aspects of qi considered to be inseparable. This vital energy is often viewed as an impersonal force emanating from the magnetic energy source of the universe, according to Taoist belief. It flows directly from the North Star in the Big Dipper. The key difference between the Eastern and Western conceptions of this vital force is that Easterners believe they can facilitate the flow of prana and qi through meditation and physical exercises, including breath control, yoga, and qigong. Although most Westerners believe that grace flows to us from the divine, Western religion itself is divided about precisely what opens the tap. Some believe that we need grace for our spiritual health and ultimate salvation, yet are completely dependent on God to bestow it on us, an outlook that would seem to diminish the role of free will. Others believe that we are entirely dependent on our own efforts to achieve salvation, but they find it difficult to explain those sudden, unexpected infusions of energy and insight that are capable of completely turning our lives around for the better. Some Christians believe that grace is a spiritual supplement that is given to us when we request it through prayer or earn it through the use of sacramental rituals. Others believe that grace flows from God to us without being requested, just as it flows into the heart of an infant who is baptized, or works as a kind of secret force in the heart of a sinner that leads him to repent. However, and whenever it comes to us, though, most people believe that grace enhances our life force, providing us with strength, protection, and courage in times of need. It has the potential to heal illnesses and bestow blessings. I believe that we can earn grace through prayer, meditation, and other spiritual practices that increase its presence within us. But I also believe that there is a divine form of grace that provides us with spiritual stamina and direction that flows into us in times of need, whether we ask for it or not. This divine energy is your charism, a unique expression of grace that empowers you to fulfill your sacred contract. The word charism comes from a Greek root meaning gift. It derives from ancient Christian theology, where it denotes a special divine endowment bestowed on believers as evidence of the power of God's presence in their lives. One's charism was thought to be a gift of proof that the divine was intimately present in the work one was called to do in this lifetime. This meaning survives in our use of the word charisma. Sometimes we are not immediately aware of having received a gift of grace until we see its effects in our lives, as Lisa did. But at certain times, we may experience an epiphany, from Greek roots meaning to manifest, a sudden illumination of our intimate union with the divine. During an epiphany, your relationship to God is transformed from one of doubt or fear into one of deep trust. You suddenly understand that everything in your life has occurred by divine intention, by the grace of God. People have described their epiphany experiences to me as the sudden ending of the inner chaos and lack of direction or significance they felt. Through a sudden infusion of charism, your inability to make sense of life's challenges, coupled with the emotional weight of feeling as if you are living without purpose or direction, is transformed into the knowledge that each moment in your life is divinely ordered. Charism can even make its way into our lives when we are not consciously asking for it. A woman named Cindy told me that she finally made contact with her charism while she was having coffee in a bookstore. As ridiculous as this sounds, she said, I was reading a story in a local paper about two people who were getting married that weekend and how they had met. It was very romantic, and it made me feel very lonely. I started to slip into that dark place of self-pity in which you tell yourself that none of that kind of magic ever happens to you. My thoughts drifted to my place in the divine scheme of life, and I decided that I was a fairly insignificant player in this world. Then, suddenly, I had an insight that penetrated my body, mind, and spirit simultaneously. It was as if a spotlight had been turned on, making everything and everyone in my life shine as brightly as my eyes could handle. Even people I wasn't fond of looked lovely to me. During that experience, I was given a sort of life review in which I recalled every emotion I had ever had with each person in my life. At the end of that process, I knew that I would recognize that energy flowing in me for the rest of my life. When the whole experience was over, I was left with an indescribable sense of connection to God that made me feel that I had always been guided and that I was not alone. The energy that Cindy felt surging through her during her epiphany in the bookstore is her charism, which she now recognizes as God's voice within me. Mystics from Saint Teresa of Avila and Saint Ignatius Loyola to Sri Ramakrishna and Sathya Sai Baba have also felt this presence of the divine at work in them. The Hindu temple priest and visionary Ramakrishna, for instance, had visions of Muhammad, Jesus, and the Buddha, after which he embraced Islam, Christianity, and Buddhism, an extraordinary practice in 19th century India. As a young man in the early 16th century, Ignatius Loyola was more interested in courtly life and military exploits than in the clerical life that his father wanted for him. While recovering from a leg wound received in battle, Ignatius read the lives of St. Francis and St. Dominic, and suddenly he experienced an exhilaration, an energy that led him into the spiritual life. His book of mystic practice, The Spiritual Exercises, is still used by lay people seeking to enhance their own awareness of the divine within. With the decline of monastic life today, mystics are often a part of mainstream society. Your own search for your purpose in life makes you a similar seeker of God's presence and a candidate for an infusion of grace. Even if your experience of charism is not as dramatic or immediate as Cindy's or Ramakrishna's and Ignatius Loyola's, you should be alert for its workings within you. Your passion to know the individual nature of your spirit, for instance, is nurtured by your charism. Your charism is also the energy through which the uniqueness of your spiritual identity is revealed to others, the equivalent of your own spiritual trademark. As this grace helps you to know yourself, you then channel it to others. And the reverse is also true. The energy that you intuitively sense in the people around you is the essence of their charism. Groups as well as individuals have their own charism. Tribes and other forms of community life have a collective grace by which they identify their unique spiritual purpose. Rituals and ceremonies that are derived from a group's particular focus draw on their charism for guidance. They are also a means through which the group can discern whether someone desiring to become a part of that group is appropriate. One Christian monk told me, "Our charism as a community is to serve God through dedicating our lives to prayer. In the cloister, we see everything we do as part of a group devotion to bring the Spirit into the lives of those in need on this earth. If a person desires to join this community, his individual charism needs to be aligned to that of this group. Without that unity, that person would not be able to survive the rigors of this life. He would not be fed by the special grace that comes to the group, not because it is denied him, but because his spirit requires a form of sustenance that is simply not present in our community grace." Some people do try to ignore this divine grace, even as it flows into them. When I was a young girl in parochial school, the nuns loved to talk to us about our vocations. To them, of course, a vocation meant only one thing, a calling to the religious life. They made plain that we always had free will and could refuse the calling, but that we would never be as happy or fulfilled as we would if we had followed our vocation. Although I feel it was wrong for them to pressure us to join a religious order, I would agree that failing to acknowledge your charism, vocation, or contract can make life more difficult and less fulfilling. As Greg Lavoie writes in his book, Callings, vocations can be many things. They may be calls to do something, become self-employed, go back to school, leave or start a relationship, move to the country, change careers, have a child, or calls to something more creative, less judgmental, more loving, less fearful. They may be calls toward or away from something, calls to change something, review our commitment to it, or come back to it in an entirely new way. Calls toward whatever we've dared ourselves to do for as long as we can remember. Unfortunately, we often simply tune out the longings we feel rather than confront and act on them. Perhaps we do not really forget our calls, but we fear what they might demand of us in pursuing them. Anticipating the conniptions of change blocks us from acknowledging that we do know and always have known what our calls are. In some ways, this book is itself an emanation of grace that came to me in a series of unexpected insights. As Joseph Campbell said to Bill Moyers in The Power of Myth, when you write a creative work, you yield yourself, and the book talks to you and builds itself. To a certain extent, you become the carrier of something that is given to you from what has been called the muses, or in biblical language, God. This is no fancy, it is a fact. Since the inspiration comes from the unconscious, and since the unconscious minds of the people of any single small society have much in common, what the shaman or seer brings forth is something that is waiting to be brought forth in everyone. In that sense, I want you to view this book as an opportunity to evoke and recognize your own charism, muses, and insights, to get in touch with those longings and hidden vocations that will add so much more to your life once you learn to acknowledge them. To the extent that you are able to acknowledge and accept the grace and guidance that comes your way, your life will become more rewarding. Seeing life symbolically means always looking for the larger and deeper meaning in any event. That view transcends the physical plane and, especially at moments of stress or confrontation, allows you to rise above whatever is happening and see it in the context of your entire life, as your spirit guide, for instance, might see it. Even if you have not felt the presence of a spirit guide or the suspicion that you are living an assignment that was given you before birth, You may have noticed certain recurrent patterns or problems or events in your life. Perhaps you have trouble with your parents or troubled relationships with other men or women. Perhaps you have repeated illnesses or difficulties in your career. Or perhaps your life as a whole is fine, but you feel that you're missing something. You may need to try to see these things from a different perspective. To do this, you need to be sensitive not only to your physical environment, but also to the planes of awareness where the landscape is more symbolic than literal. One such plane, with which we are all familiar, is the realm of dreams. And I'll stop there. That's plenty to talk about.
Yeah, I was thinking on this last part of where it says seeing life symbolically means looking at it or looking for the larger, deeper meaning in any event, the view that transcends the physical plane, especially at moments of stress or confrontation. It allows you to arise above what's happening and see it in the context of your entire life. I feel like that has happened to me a number of times where I'm just, whatever is happening. I don't know. I feel like the more significant the event is, the more I can, even though it's really, really stressful, it seems like I can be like, okay, it's all okay. It's all okay. I don't know. I see it from that kind of like 10,000-foot perspective, if you will. It's those everyday ongoing stressors that I struggle with more than the big major things for whatever weird reason. But the thing is I stress out about the worry about big major things, right? So figure that out. I don't know. I worry about the big major things when I don't need to, but when they happen, I seem fine with it. And then just the day-to-day baloney gets me stressed out. So
It was interesting to me how she brought up the idea of if you believe in God, then it seems like it does away with your own free will, which I believe we're all given our own free will, of course. But then to believe in this amazing, all powerful, all knowing, all seeing, and all that, this being off planet, who knows where, but he's here in your heart if you're a believer. And it's just another one of those things that a conundrum, constantly wondering and questioning and whether to believe in the thoughts and feelings that you have to guide you and follow. It's definitely got to be a sacred contract.
Well, speaking from my personal, yeah, that part that you were talking about, where she says, where if believe in God, that it takes what, and I honestly don't believe that. I think that God allows us the choice to make the decisions that we make and do what we do. I believe that He allows things to happen, and for me to look at it through the lens of guiding me and giving me signs, signals, things happening in my life to help give me choices, maybe might be a better way of saying it, of what I want to do. And usually I choose what I feel I need to do, or what fits the plan that I have. But I I, I believe that
Until it doesn't work out, then what do you do?
well, that's the thing, because based on my choices and the things I do, I go through what happens, and yes, there are those times, a lot of times it doesn't go the way I planned or whatever, but something else happens, and then I have so because Catherine read, there's a part where she said maybe as you're going through your life, you see the same or similar recurring themes that happen in your life. And I'm seeing and I'm looking back, I'm realizing that, over the last 20, 25 years, 30 years, I've had some similar recurring things happen. And they may not be the exact same thing happening, but they're similar enough that it makes me think of, I'm trying to figure out what is it I've missed in those reoccurring things that may have been part of the overall plan that's set for my life to where I'm trying to work towards where I want where I think I want to be, but maybe these things are those things that are trying to maybe like the rudder on a boat is trying to correct my direction, but within allowing me to make that decision how far I want to correct or it's still I think we're all in that process of trying to figure it out and understand. Some are a little more enlightened and have a better feel on it. I will lean towards Catherine on that a little bit in some ways because I don't have it all figured out, but I do believe that there's more to my life than just what I'm doing, but I'm still trying to figure it out too.
I think everybody's still trying to figure it out. I mean, I have full belief, complete, total, full belief in miracles. I've witnessed them. I've had them flow through me to somebody else. Um, there's not a question in my mind that certain things do exist, but at the same time, look at my life. I have these really rare, I have like 4 really, really rare conditions, and I didn't get them all at one time. It's like I got one and then got that one somewhat under control, and then I got another one, and then I got another one, and then I got another one. So I have heavy patterns in my life that I obviously haven't figured out the answer to. I've questioned if it has something to do with me not believing. Like I don't consider myself a healer because God does the healing. So I'm just like what he shoots it through or something.
A
So
facilitator.
yeah.
A conduit.
So yeah. So but I don't, maybe because I'm not honoring that aspect of my life enough or something, these healing incidents, because they're all healing incidents in my life, physical healing stuff. So, what is it about physical healing and my belief system? Why can I facilitate healing for someone else and not for myself? And this is something that every healer that has ever, you know, or facilitator that has ever been on earth has questioned. A lot of people that can facilitate healing for others for whatever reason cannot facilitate it for themselves. And yet I have felt God's grace over and over and over in my life. And so I have to believe that whatever I'm left with, whatever I'm dealing with, um, has purpose, because I don't believe that God just lets people suffer aimlessly. They're not as emotional as we are, but they still are very caring and want what's best for us and want us to be happy and joyful and prosperous and, all of that. But I understand that really the only way to learn a lesson is to live through it. So you can read a book about somebody else's experience. You can have a best friend that tells you every day about their experience or whatever, but you don't really get it until you are going through it yourself. So I'm racking up bonus experience points here, y'all. I'm like,
I'm
I
right
did.
there with you.
Well, I'll go out and say something, and this is more on a different level, but I think it kind of helps put it in more perspective for me. I've grown, all my life I've heard people say that, um, it's hard when you lose your parent, when they pass on and die and stuff like that, and that you never get over it. And when I was younger, I didn't get it. It's like, well, they're dead, they're gone, they're not here. You miss them and you carry them in your heart, but you don't, you know. But now that I've, my mom's been passed away, it'll be 4 years in July. But I understand that now. I understand that idea. You never really fully get over the loss of them not being here. And it totally made sense to me once it happened. It's like you don't fully get over it. You don't, it's never the same. You learn to go on and you learn to live and you learn to go on with your life. But my grandfather's been dead since the middle 80s, something like when he was, and my grandmother passed away in 2005. So but it's different and it's weird. And so in that sense, but yet going through and living that experience has opened my eyes, and I'm thinking it's making me more aware of even my own life now and the purpose and what I want to leave for those that are here that I love, like my brother and his wife and their kids, because I have no kids, I'm not married. So in that sense, how what what significance will my life have now? And I think, God's shown me grace and shown me some things where um maybe some of the lessons I've learned, especially financial lessons, maybe last go around over the last few months with my car, maybe it's sinking in a little bit more and making me look at things differently. And I am making some changes to work towards doing some things I've been afraid of in the past to step out and do, but I'm doing it now. And I believe that I will have success. I believe I will get there. Um, I don't expect it to be immediately and overnight, like I wish it would be, but that's not the reality. But it has made me just look and view some things and looking at it as grace and mercy coming from God, allowing me to make the mistakes in the past that I made. But now at this point, maybe this is where that sacred contract or whatever, maybe this is the point where I'm starting to wake up to, okay, you got my attention. I need to make some changes and I need to quit being afraid and step out and do what I wanted to do maybe 20, 30 years ago, but just didn't have the fortitude or the wherewithal and the heart to do it.
And I have to throw a monkey wrench in there that losing your parents, it was hard, even though I didn't have the type of relationship with my parents that people would want, or you would think or hope would be the ideal thing. So you still kind of left with the same conundrum. Oh, come on. I didn't leave you all speechless.
Yeah. Well, I was just thinking for now with my birth mom and my sister, I don't have I'm working on that relationship. And in fact, for Mother's Day, I got to remind myself to uh, do a couple things for her. I don't know. It may be a different feeling. Like when when my stepdad passed away, it had no real effect. I'm like, I mean, okay, yeah, he's passed on. I didn't want to be a part of it. I didn't want to have anything. I turned the reins over to my sister, who had been around him. You know, once I moved down here, I basically didn't have. So that might be different. But with my mom here, my aunt who became my mom from the time I was 12, it was very different. And so in that sense, maybe that's why it was so much harder for me. I don't know. I'll see how that plays out if and when that happens. Go ahead, Catherine. Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I was just acknowledging we don't know how someone or some things death is going to affect us, or how long it's going to affect us. Like I've had people that it didn't affect me at all. And even my grandmother, who was kind of like my mom, she, was basically my mom from, I think, 3 weeks on. Um, I was, thank God, like that was a big deal going on then because my 16-year-old daughter was missing and I was out on the street searching for her night and day, and my grandmother was dying of cancer. And thank God I wasn't able to go see my grandmother because I was searching for my daughter. So thank God I found my daughter. That was Grace. And I was able to borrow enough money to fly the three of us down to see my grandmother before she passed. And then probably within 30 minutes of us leaving, she went into a coma and never came back out of it and died later that night. So, like, talk
She
about
was waiting to
grace.
see you.
Exactly, she was. And I always thought that when she passed, I would have this, never, like I wouldn't ever get over it. But, well, I guess I don't really count because being a medium, like I talk to her more now than I talked to her when she was alive. So we have more conversations now than we did then. So, and yet I feel like my mom, even though we're mending fences now, there was a good portion of my life that we were somewhat apart from each other, sometimes physically and emotionally. But I feel like when she passes, I'll have more of that. And not because she's my blood mom, but just because we have more unfinished business than my grandmother and I did, I guess is what you know, and the person or thing, well, she's not a person, but the one that I grieved the most for when she died of anybody in my life was my Black German Shepherd Hera. And I had her for 15 years. And she was with me through some of the darkest times of my life, the times when I was wanting to kill myself 24 hours a day. And she got me through that. And when she died, I think I just grieved for everything that I had never grieved for before. I think I just grieved for everything, like all at once. It was really intense and long standing. Um, so you don't really know, how you're going to react when you lose something. And I mean, there's a saying about that. You don't realize what you've lost until you do. So
until it's gone.
until it's gone, that's right.
Question, just a curiosity question. How, in connection with this book, Sacred Contracts, h- how do we view this in light of our overall, as we're going through this book, where that might play into our sacred contracts, the way we, like I said, I'm realizing that some of the things that have, happened in the past, like, the financial things and things, and it's prompting me more now. But how does even the passing of people that we really care about, or in your case, the one, your one dog, Hera, how does that play into our sacred contract, and where does that, you know, I'm sure it's got to be a facet of that, and where does that play into this overall aspect? Because I still believe that we have that free will in these choices, but sometimes the outside aspects of what are going on, like you said, your dog, being what helped get you through, you know, what was I have to believe the dog knew or sensed something because of probably how close, kind of like Kenji with his dog. I've had animals that I really cared a lot about. I saw my one cat get run over, so in that sense, that was traumatic. In that sense, I wonder how that all plays into some of the aspects of the sacred contract and how that steers us or guides us or moves us along. I wonder how some of those type of aspects play in too.
Hmm. They get more intense as you get older. More people passed away. Our guides, Sweet Pea's my guide. My spiritual guide. I don't know. Maybe there isn't any rhyme or reason to it.
One of those things that makes us think and stop and really ponder, you know, everything, you know, 'cause I'll admit I get so busy and so caught up with things going on in my everyday life and things like that, that sometimes when I do stop and think about things, I get so many things coming through my head and going through, and I'm wondering and I'm looking at things and trying to sort things out and I'm trying to, you know, find out what's the most important, or what's the, big thing, or what God has in store, or what he's trying to, that sometimes I get overwhelmed and then I don't want to think about it. And sometimes I'll go back to the busyness just to kind of sometimes push that off too. But it's interesting how, you know, deep down, I think we want to know, and we desire to know what it is and find that purpose. But I also think part of finding the purpose is the journey, and stepping through and finding out what God is leading us to too. So I mean, it's just interesting, like this, just what was it, your soul's plan or whatever that one book name, and some of the Tao Te Ching, and some of these books that we've gone through, how they help, but sometimes they create more questions for me too.
Well, as someone once told me, if we could understand God, they wouldn't be much of a God, would they?
So true.
Good point. You're right.
So I allow for the mystery because I mean, just what we're put through in one day here on planet Earth as a human in these times with all of our technologies and things, like the amount of information that we put through ourselves in a day is more than some of our ancestors had in their whole life. You know what I mean? Like if you added up how many phone calls or emails, interactions with other humans we have just in one day, um, there's just so much that I don't understand and I didn't understand. Some things make sense now that I didn't understand at the time. And so I have all confidence that in time I will understand this too.
And then you won't be here.
Probably.
Same with all of us.
We'll be on the other side, and then we'll be saying, "Oh, that's what my stuff was all about."
That's what
That's
we're
right.
saying.
So be careful what you ask for, because God has a wicked sense of humor. I will say that.
Oh, yes, I agree. I agree.
So if you
I think
really
we've all
keep
agreed on
asking to
that.
be all knowing, then you just wind up on the other side where you are.
Mm.
Hmm.
Jason left a comment. He said, "Wonder if part of the sacred contract is that we aren't supposed to know or spend our mortal time searching for it." Hmm.
Is that our purpose?
I think it's woven into the purpose, but I think I don't know, for me, it's hard to believe that, and maybe it's just me, something inside of me won't just totally accept just that. I believe there's more, but what the more is, I'm still learning and growing and trying to figure out. But we're at the top of the hour. I don't know. Do you guys want to keep talking, or do we want to say last thoughts, or how do where's everybody at?
We're all dumbfounded, it seems.
Dar. I'm good. We can keep talking. We're in no hurry.
Jason said, like, we're not supposed to ask what our purpose is in regards to his last statement.
You
Who knows?
have failed. You have asked.
I mean, there are people that completely believe, and I should too, and maybe that's why I'm still not healed, that, it is simply energy, and energy can be changed, and therefore it doesn't matter what is wrong with your body or your life or your situation, that you can change the energy in that area and make things different. And
And that's,
I
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
No, go ahead.
No,
Well,
you got it.
that's, I think I have managed to change that energy, but I change it into something else that I don't want.
Hmm.
So I need to be a better magician here, because um, we're trying to get to less pain, not more. I just keep ramping it up. There's there's got to be a lesson behind that somewhere. If nothing else, compassion. But
maybe more compassion for yourself than you, because I think deep down, and I'm hoping I'm speaking from the right spot, but I think deep down in your heart, you have a lot of compassion for other people, especially those in similar circumstances as your own and Kenji's maybe. But maybe looking back for yourself and in that energy, because you're right, we do have a lot of energy and we can change our energy. They've proven that by, raising or higher, lowering your vibration levels and stuff like that. So maybe that's something we all do to ourselves in a sense is we maybe deep down believe it. We, in our heads, we say, okay, I know I can change my energy level, raise it, lower it, but maybe we sabotage ourselves because we don't really believe that. And I'm putting it this way, but I don't think it's the exact way I'm trying to think, but maybe we don't believe that we're worthy, honorable, or deserving of it, but yet I believe that God wants to allow that, and maybe we're the short circuit that's not letting the like the whole energy, like on an electrical circuit, the whole circuit flow through. Maybe, and I think we've said that before too in the past in other discussions.
well, and there's also something to be said for, I mean, we're not put here on the planet by ourselves.
What?
So somewhere out there, there's a neurosurgeon, and his dream was to be able to make some weird chick with a whole lot of pain feel better, you know?
Hmm.
And so by me having what I had for him to operate on me, that fulfilled his purpose. So
Mhm.
who's to say that's not just as important as anything else, you know? I mean, we're here to work together with other beings. And really, I mean, our lifetime is just so short when compared to the eternity that our spirits are here for. Like it's almost like when, like, if you have a child, or if you don't have children, an animal, and they have a little boo-boo or whatever, and like Samantha was talking about her granddaughter with the socks, and she was just screaming that the socks were hurting her so bad, you know, and Samantha had compassion for her because she was obviously in distress and she was screaming. But at the same time, it was just socks, you know what I mean? And I think sometimes that's how God and our guides and the angels look down at us, and you know, we're like, and they're just like, it's just socks, you know. I mean, they have
And
compassion, but they
and the
understand that.
angels and God are sitting up there rolling on the floor, laughing, saying, see,
It's not
every
possible.
time I try to plan and do,
Too many of
they're
us.
going, ha, you don't got it.
I think he laughs, but at the same time, I think he shakes his head and just goes, "Are they ever going to learn?" I think that's in my case most of the time. I'm sitting there, am I ever going to learn? And how many times do I have to go through some of this stuff that I'm going through that I'm realizing that okay, this is similar to what happened like about 14, 15 years ago. And, similar to, and I'm just like, am I ever going to wake up and realize that, okay, let's make some changes and let's do something. Going back to what you were saying, changing our energy level and our, and sometimes stepping out, not being afraid is the biggest battle too that we have to get over.
And I'm constantly thinking and saying that we are all specimens in somebody's experiment. As many people as there are on this planet, they all have their emotions and egos controlling their lives just like we do. And as a specimen in the experiments, it's just a matter of whatever the experiences are, it's more what you do with it than what happens to you.
So how come I was born here and not in Kenya?
Because you were.
I mean, it's very strange. I wonder if they think the same thing. I wonder why I wasn't born in America.
I've thought about that a lot because I, talk to people from all around the world online, obviously, and I've thought about, you know, why was I born here and not there? And so many times, I mean, I would have been like stoned or killed because I wouldn't have put up with that shit like that a lot of if I was born as a woman in some other countries where they just have no rights and like I wouldn't have survived. God knows he had to put me here where I at least had some kind of a chance.
Jason left a couple more comments. He says, interesting idea. We could be the short circuit and the resistance, and then overall the error in the code, which that's an interesting thought. And then two, there is a heavenly game show. Like, let's make a sacred contract. We have to pick what's behind each door or each curtain
Yeah.
or whatever. Like the old let's make a deal. Okay, I'll trade you this for, what's behind door number one or what's behind, and you know what? In some
But
cases,
can we really trade?
We only get 3 doors.
but sometimes I really feel like that sometimes it's like, okay, here I am. What
Dang
out
it,
of,
I chose the wrong door again.
yeah, but I only have these 3 choices. Which one? And I'm looking at all the options and I'm thinking, well, this could be that, this could be that, there's possibilities in all of them, but which one? And I feel like sometimes I keep picking the zonk. I'm showing my age here with the old let's make a deal.
Jason, you got to write that movie. That would make a great movie. You got to write that. Let's make a sacred contract.
And you get to be the host, Jason.
Remember Richard Dawson from Hogan's Heroes? Didn't he
Yeah.
narrate Let's Make a Deal for a little while?
Oh, I can't
Or
remember.
was it Monty Hall?
Monty
Monty
Hall
Hall.
was
Yeah.
let's make no Richard Dawson was Family Feud.
Oh, yeah. That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
He,
yeah.
he he was kissing all the women all the time.
Yeah, little pervert. Can't do that nowadays. He'd be thrown in jail with Weinstein. Yeah. That guy looks really creepy to me. They showed me at a trial this week. Weinstein did. And he doesn't look as bad as the porn star that they arrested. What's his name? Ron Jeremy. That poor guy. I mean, it's funny what life does to you and the choices that you make over time. How they, I mean, anybody can make a choice right now, but these choices that we make, they add up over time. And then it shows in our face, in our body. It shows.
Well, we're coming up on
11:15.
yeah. Any last thoughts or anything anybody wants to add?
I love you all, and I'll see you next week.
Yep. Love you guys. Have a great week. I don't really have any final thoughts other
Yeah.
than I personally, I do believe that we do make sacred contracts.
I wonder if
If
I
you
made a deal.
but we might have picked the zonk door, like you said, Dan.
Oh man. We're living
The
the zone.
whammy.
All right.
So
Let's do the second contract next week. See you guys next Saturday.
So this is the Saturday Morning Mastermind. You can find us on Facebook at Mindset Mastery Collective, also on YouTube, on our YouTube channel at Mindset Mastery Collective. If you want to be on the panel, you can get a hold of us and we can help get you set up so you can join us here. And look forward to seeing you guys next week here on the Saturday Morning Mastermind.
Bye.
Bye.
See you next week,
Hasta la
George.
vista, baby.